Hey all, Al back here with an update on the A380 thrust controls, how to configure and set them up for the Honeycomb Bravo quadrant. So a Sim Pilot Z74 Pilot 5 on the last how-to advised me that the A380 doesn't actually have reverse thrusters on engine 1 and engine 4. It only has reverse thrusters on 2 and 3. That's to reduce the effect of debris getting pulled into the engines. On the middle engines are far more guarded from debris than the outer engines. So I've decided to update the video that I'd done about the thrust control setup for the Bravo. Also, the reverse thrusters that I set up weren't set up correctly either. So what I'll do is I'll go through what I've updated or what I've learned from last week to now. So at the moment you're looking at my Bravo quadrant and the thrust controls on the A380. What we need to do is we need to go back into the options menu again. Control options. Find your Bravo throttle quadrant. As I said, I set up a profile for A380. Under the power management, you should only have throttle on it. What we can actually do is the throttle 4 decrease, throttle 3 decrease, 2 and 1 decrease. We can get rid of those because we're not going to use those. Just click on those, clear them out, validate. Same with 3, validate. Do this all the time. I click it there and I don't actually clear it out. So wait for that to come back in again. Try this again. Click in there, click clear, validate. Same with 2, get rid of that, clear, validate, and 1, same again, clear and validate. The only ones you should have in there now under throttle is throttle axis 1, 2, 3, and 4. Click apply on that. Go back, zoom. What we're going to do now is we're going to set up the throttles to match up with the A380. From toga down to flex, down to climb, down to idle, reverse idle, and then reverse. Reverse actually still does work with 3 and 4 on the controls, but I'll show you what I mean. So what we first need to do is open up the iPad. The iPad I mean, the 360 iPad. So we start that up. Go into settings, sim options, down to throttle detents, calibrate. So we're going to calibrate the throttle detents. From a couple of videos I've seen, the best way to do it is to do it from toga down to flex, down to climb, idle, reverse idle, and then reverse full. So at the moment as well, some of the simmers said that they don't have reverse full actually developed in the A380 yet, but it still works on the throttles. I'll just show you that. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch between this back to the throttle itself. What we're going to do first of all is, you'll see me, I'll push all our controls on the Honeycomb right to toga. We'll push them all up. You'll hear the engine spool up to toga and the alarm system on it. That's okay. Switch back to the iPad. We're now going to set this as toga. Make sure you have the center console toga. Set throttle, set throttle, set throttle, set throttle. That's the 4 throttles set to toga. Next one we're going to do is flex. So you can select flex. Okay, switch back to the center console. Reduce the throttles down to flex. Okay. Down to flex. Switch back to the iPad again. I found it handy to set up a camera but for the iPad and throttles. This time we're going to set flex, make sure flex is selected. Go by number 1 because we know from the throttle, if I switch back again quickly, you can see it's on flex on the little thing. So 1 will be 053. We could adjust, you see 2 to get 053. And adjust 3 to get 053, if you can see. Have them all the same. Little bit. 4 to get 053. The 1 will be the one that we're going off. So we can now make sure the flex is selected. Set throttle, set throttle, set throttle, set throttle. So that's flex. Next one we're going to do is climb. You can select climb in the middle. Switch back to the middle console again, the throttle. Reduce, you can see me reducing down to climb. We're at climb. Again, switch back to the iPad again. As I say, we can go off 4 as being the one. 04, they're all on 04 except for maybe 4. We can adjust it up a little bit. Make sure the climb is selected in the middle. Set throttle, set throttle, set throttle, set throttle. That's now climb, so we've done toga, flex, climb. Next one will be idle. Select idle. Once again, switch back to center console. We'll bring it down to idle. The problem now with idle is that on the Honeycomb throttle quadrant there's a little notch there is idle, okay? So when it sits on the little notch, it's on idle. The only problem with this now though is that idle, we can't use that. The reason being that if we use that and I pull 2 down to idle, 2 is not now on idle, 2 has gone into reverse. You can hear the pitch of the engine gone up. You can even look at the engine. You can see sitting on the little, it's gone into reverse. So idle is not actually there. Idle is, if you adjust it up, you can see that there on the camera. Idle is actually there on the Honeycomb. It's not on the little. So that's why people are having problem with reverse. Reverse is there, it's working. So if we go back into so to set idle, really need just when 1 sit there. So now I don't know whether you can see that on the camera. It's not sitting on the little notch on the honeycomb, it's sitting above it. So we can see that that's idle because it's a 0. We adjust the other ones down. So you can hear the engine spooling down to idle. And you can know it's on idle and not reverse if we go back out to the engine. It's on idle, it's not on reverse. So hopefully that makes sense. It's there's a little notch on the honeycomb that I would have thought should be idle, but that's not idle. It's just above that. So then, now that you've found idle, that's not gone into reverse thruster. Go back to 6. Back to the iPad again. You can now go off throttle 1. Look back at the throttle, which is sitting on 0, which is idle, and set it for idle. So it'll be 50. We can adjust the second one's just slightly. Set that to idle, make sure it's idle in the middle, set it to idle, set that to idle, set that to idle. The thing is now we can have reverse idle. Gets a bit more complicated here. Really. With reverse idle, I pretty much left it alone. I left it whatever it's on. I didn't go mess with reverse idle. What I'll actually do is I left reverse idle. Gets a bit niggly on that when you're trying to reverse. What I've done is done the full reverse. Okay, so we're going to do full reverse. I'll show you what we can do as we go back to center console again, to the thrust. What we're going to do this time is I'm going to set 2 and 3 just to sit where I would have thought idle should be. That's the little thing before you push it back down. So it's not right down where I would have thought reverse idle should be. It's actually sitting on the little. It should really be idle, I would have thought. You can't see it on the sim. You can hear it on the sim. If we jump out to 8 to have a look, you can see it's reverse idle. It's reverse thrust, sorry, not reverse idle. Reverse thrust. So it's set on reverse thrust. If I bring it back up to idle again, you'll see idle there. Bring it back down again. There you go, reverse thrust. So you'll know on the honeycomb when it's sitting on that little notch just above. It's not fully down. You can go fully down there. Just sitting on the little notch there on the honeycomb. So that's reverse thrust. Go back in to your iPad again. We'll set this at reverse thrust. Hopefully we don't get an error message. We don't. So really what I've done is I've ignored reverse idle. Maybe we can configure it later on when FlyByWire get the reverse thrust working correctly. But for now we've set that, so save and apply. We go back to our center console, I'm hoping. I just heard the reverse thrust go off, I don't like that. If we Yeah, I can hear it come back on again. That's reverse thrust. So as I say, it won't show in the sim. You can see me doing it on the Honeycomb. We'll jump out, see the engines go. We'll demonstrate to you again. We'll bring it back up to idle. Back down to reverse thrust. The reverse thrust is working. It's not where it should be, where I would have thought if you're fully down on the Honeycomb that would be reverse thrust and back up would be idle. No, not right now, not yet. Bring it back up to idle. Jump back in to center console again. And now see if we can go up to Toga. All four are up. And bring it down to flex. You should be able to hear it. Click. Bring it down to climb, thrust. Then bring it down to idle. Finally, reverse thrust. Bring it back up to idle again. So I think until FlyByWire gets the reverse thrust working, we're gonna have to work with that way. Not ideal because it just doesn't feel right on the Honeycomb. For me, that would be idle. But you can see the difference between idle, where it's set, and where I would think, and that would be reverse thrust. Right now it doesn't work that way. So hopefully that will help a few out there to set up the throttle controls. This is an update on the other one that I done. Unfortunately I didn't get it correctly. So once again on the A380, only engine 2 and engine 3 have reverse thrust on it. 1 and 4 don't, to stop debris from being pulled into the engine. If you have any questions or anything like any comments, just leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you. So hopefully that's helped a few people out, and we will chat to you later. And thanks to Z747 Pilot 5 for actually correcting me. I don't mind being corrected if I'm wrong. I'm no expert on this. So we will chat to you later. Thanks. Bye.